Welcome to Chapter 4, Oral Language Development in Second Language Acquisition, from the book Reading, Writing and Learning in ESL by Suzanne Peregoy and Owen Boyle. Chapter 4 is about oral language development in second language acquisition. The first part describes how listening, reading, speaking, and writing are interconnected in day-to-day experiences and how these processes support each other during language development. It discusses how oral language functions could be integrated not just to classroom routine, but also to reading and writing activities. In addition, this chapter describes oral language performers of beginning and intermediate English learners. Also, many different ways to promote oral language development in the classroom were presented to integrate with reading and writing across curriculum areas. Finally, this chapter explains how to keep records of a student's oral language development using the Student Oral Language Observation Matrix, checklists, and anecdotal observations. In this presentation, I will focus on describing oral language performance of beginning and intermediate English learners, promoting oral language development in the classroom, and classroom assessment of English learners' oral language development. It is important to keep in mind through this presentation that all the strategies presented are appropriate to use for native English speakers as well as English in the beginning and intermediate level. Second language oral proficiency of beginning English learners. This stage begins right away when the child is exposed to the new language. At the beginning, the child does not understand or speak any word of English. However, shortly after repetitive social interactions in this new language, comprehension starts happening. Soon after comprehension starts, speech productions will take place. Still, it is important not to force to speak at this stage. A student's speech at this level, characterized by the use of simple functional phrases and expressions like okay or wanna play, students are able to speak using simple grammatical rules. The most important to consider when teaching beginners English learners is the social-emotional aspect. Teachers can provide support to this student by assigning a home group and a buddy who preferably speaks the language of the newcomer. This buddy will go everywhere during the school day with the new student, and the home group will help the new student during routine classroom activities. This setup creates the safe environment for a new student to start interacting with peers. This is the place where language acquisitions start to develop. At the beginning, the lesson should be designed so that students can participate through non-verbal responses like drawing, painting, or coloring. These high-level cognitive activities will promote interaction through meaningful content and also will encourage students to speak. Being involved in low-risk activities in small groups means that there are a lot of language learning opportunities for the beginner English learners to talk. There are several shelter techniques that not just the English learners will benefit, but also the other students will profit from, like the use of gestures, paraphrasing, and checking for understanding. These simple techniques will help to create a more comprehensible input for the students. Second, language oral proficiency of intermediate English learners. Intermediate English learners are able to carry on a conversation face-to-face interaction. They are very confident when speaking and they might encounter just a few misunderstandings. At this point, their grammatical skills are still growing, so you might hear some non-idiomatic expressions like she liked to read. Occasional search for the correct vocabulary word like variations of word scare, for example, scared, scary. Even though it is very hard for a teacher to stop the impulse to correct the students right away, the authors proposed to show interest on the subject the student is talking about by asking questions to encourage more speech production. The way to teach the correct grammar use is through the teacher's response using proper English. Teachers can support a student's participation in classroom activities by using sheltering strategies and small group dynamics discussed previously. However, at this stage is the time to encourage more speech production by using these students as a buddy to a new beginner English learner or to take part in dramatizations of reader's theater or any language activity that requires rehearsal. As students from the intermediate level move forward in their language development, you will notice they sound more fluent and they express more enthusiasm in small group activities as well as whole group interactions. At this point, it is essential to keep supporting the students with sheltering techniques and group collaboration. Even though students may seem advanced and capable, it is important to keep using charts, graphic organizers, realia, and pictures to support the students' comprehension. Promoting oral language development in the classroom. In this section of Chapter 4, the authors state that a classroom setting provides many opportunities for oral language development, and we, as the teachers, should arrange our classroom on a manner to encourage the two most essential components of oral language development, which are comprehensible input and social interaction. In order to build basic vocabulary foundation for English learners, Peregoy and Owen emphasize the importance of establishing predictable routines where the content changes through the year but the structure remains the same. Some common routines are circle time, journal time, literature study circles, process writing, projects, theme studies, and content area lessons like math, science, and social studies. Here is a list of activities based on the arts that promote the acquisitions of oral language. These activities can be easily modified for the different levels of students and can be easily integrated into literature study, theme studies, and process writing. Activities. Using games in second language classrooms. Games improve students' learning and create a relaxed and fun environment. The author recommended drama warm-up exercises. Songs. At least sing one song a day. Songs bring a feeling of unity in the class. Songs are well liked by all ages. This activity can be done throughout the grades. Drama. Drama activities are non-threatening and fun. There are many different ways a teacher can set up the classroom to encourage drama activities. You can supply props in a dramatic play corner of your classroom. You can use what Vivian Palais calls self-expression process, where students dictate a story for the teacher to write. After, students working in collaboration dramatize the story while teacher reads the story. Dramatizing poetry. Choose a poem that expresses strong emotions, attitudes, feelings, or opinion. First, read the poem aloud, focusing in pronunciation and intonation. Make a copy of the poem on a chart paper. During the first reading is a good time to clarify difficult or unusual words. Next, read the poem chorally. Finally, in groups, students put together a dramatic performance of the poem to be presented to the whole class. Show and tell. This is a well-known strategy used by elementary teachers especially. One day a week, children are encouraged bringing a favorite toy or object to class. Each student will have the opportunity to present the toy to the rest of the class. To make it more difficult, teacher can place the object inside a bag. One look, one doesn't. In this activity, you project to the whole class an image of an object. Half of the class looks to the projection while the other half doesn't. Working in pairs, the student that is looking at the object describes it to her partner who will try to draw it. The student that is looking at the object can also observe the drawing her partner is making. Therefore, she can adjust her wording to help the drawer. At the end of the slide is a link with hundreds of listening activities that you can explore. There are 3 assessment tools presented in this chapter: the Student's Oral Language Observation Matrix, SOLOM, Checklist, and Anecdotal Observations. Let's start understanding how the SOLOM works. To use the SOLOM, first you observe a student during a class activity that encourages oral language use. If you are using the SOLOM to document the year, it is important to evaluate the students in different social contexts to get a full picture. For example, if you focus is on cooperative group work, you could observe your student during formal presentation, cooperative group work, and individual conferences with the teacher. These contexts are not test-based. On the contrary, they are routine classroom activities which promote more authentic oral language production. The SOLOM focuses teachers' observation on 5 oral language traits: comprehension, fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. The teacher evaluates the student on each area and gives a rate. This rate goes from 1 to 5, where 1 shows poor oral abilities and 5 shows high oral abilities. Then, after the teacher observes the student, she chooses a rate and marks an X on each trait. The final rate is the sum of the 5 scores you give to each trait. This assessment tool provides 4 phases of English language proficiency. Phase 1, non-English proficient. Phase 2, limited English proficient. Phase 3, limited English proficient. And Phase 4, fully English proficient. Even though the act to rate a student can be a subjective action that requires a lot of linguistic sensitivity, the authors believe that teachers can develop this sensitivity by guided experience in language observation and analysis. Therefore, when rating students, teachers may rate the same student differently. Consequently, it is important to evaluate a student many times before making any instructional decision. Another consideration when rating a student is to apply the descriptive criteria in a consistent manner. It is important to pay attention to the fact that the limited English proficient level goes from phase 2 to 3, meaning that this stage of learning is long and extensive for second language development. At the bottom of this slide is a link to the Solom matrix for you to use if you wish. If the teacher needs something more specific to evaluate the students or a progress, another strategy could be a checklist. Teachers can choose any of the oral language behaviors that need to be documented. For example, the checklist could include specific grammatical structures, vocabulary, and conversational interactions. Another assessment tool for oral language development is the anecdotal observations. This type of assessment requires more experience from the teacher. It starts with a blank piece of paper. The teacher records on the spot the event, trying to keep record of the interaction as it is. The positive side of this strategy is that you analyze on the spot interaction and you have the transcript for later review. However, when observing a student, it takes a lot of experience from the teacher to know what to look for, because what you see depends a great deal on how well you understand what you are observing. To conclude, the assessment tool that you decide to use will depend on the goals and objectives for oral performance your curriculum has. General observations provided by Solom through the year may be enough, although if you need to be more specific, you can make your own checklist based on what you need to focus, and if you have special cases that need to be analyzed in detail, you can record anecdotal observations. The important is to be systematic when observing and do it periodically to create a portfolio that shows students' oral language progress over a period of time.